All right, ladies and gentlemen, brings me a great deal of pleasure to welcome somebody back to the Spellbreakers podcast, the one, the only, legendary author, Bruce MacDonald. Bruce, welcome. Thanks for joining us again. How you doing today?
I'm very well, Donnie. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. And it's very timely, very, very, very timely. Given the stuff I've put a lot of concentration into in the last 4 years, and The Light of Darkness: A Warrior's Tale for Our Time, and the other book, The Devil in Us: A Memoir of You and Me, because I explain a lot of things in those books that are really starting to become publicly visible now. And then we'll start there and I'll let you go with your questions.
Yeah, as somebody who dove really deep into your work, I read all three of your latest books in rapid fire succession. Um, yeah, it does feel almost prophetic in some ways, and incredibly timely today. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You were very, I would say, early, and a lot of times people conflate earliness with incorrectness. But no, I think your
Yeah.
books are now standing the test of time, and I think having you back is it feels like it's written in the stars. Because we
Yeah.
really want to make sense of what's going on here, Bruce. I think there is a lot of fear in the air, a lot of strange energy. We have so much going on. It does feel like every day we're living in almost another page of Revelations or something, and this is just
Yeah.
our reality, right? So, so yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe we'll start there. What's going on?
So
Do
let
you?
me
Yeah.
let me begin with just a general disclaimer. I'm maybe going on their cultural or religious perspective. And did you just drop?
You cut out there. Please, can you maybe just restart?
I have no idea what's going on here. This is really bizarre.
You can't hear me, Bruce?
Yeah, I've got a poor connection signal here. I don't know why, but I do. Um, okay, there we're back. Okay.
All right.
So,
Great.
you can hear me now, right?
Yep, loud and
This
clear.
by the way, I do get interfered with a bit. But that's all they can do with me is just sort of bother me a little bit with electronic stuff and everything. They can't do anything more to me. So I accept it and I try to smile about it. But I mean, I've got Starlink up here now. I'm on a Mac Mini with a silicon chip. I mean, there should be no connectivity issues. So if they happen, let's just deal with them. So let me begin by saying, look, I'm gonna speak very directly today. Okay, our previous interviews were more conceptual. They were about the ideas I presented in the books that you read. And so Stardust Ranch introduces the concept of portals. And once you understand the concept of portals, you understand that there's no way to properly define what has happened on this planet in a historical sense because things come and go from this planet. That's what portals are for. They're train stations, they're bus stations. Okay? So, the light of darkness explained the role of darkness in the world, darkness in human consciousness, and more specifically, blood in a ritual sense as it's practiced in a number of religions. Okay, and the devil in us goes into this in much more detail. There's an entire 7,000 word chapter on blood. Okay, and blood is a central feature in the first two of the Abrahamic religions. I don't know to what degree it factors into um, Islam, but We know that the blood of Christ is the force that liberates Christians. We know that blood was spilt in the Jewish rituals, right, at the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And we now stand on the cusp of a blood ritual using a large mammal, a red cow. And this is the 11th time in the history of Judaica that this particular ritual will have been performed. Now, the ritual heralds the coming of the third temple of Solomon. Okay, you know all this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we just go
So
through it for people who aren't familiar? We'll just start very high
okay.
level and dig in.
Oh, it would knowing your audience the way you do, it would be best to guide me with specific questions. Because I mean, I'm just like an encyclopedia on this topic now, and I don't want to go right into the PhD level before people get the undergraduate stuff. So,
Well, I would just say with the red heifer specifically, this is an Old Testament ritual, if you will, that
yeah.
is so maybe just walk people through that kind of high level.
So the sacrifice of the red heifers is done outside of the temple. Okay, so they've actually built a platform for this now. Now, I personally think that the Islamic world is aware of this, and I think that the Islamic world is aware of what these rituals are. And it's interesting that we're going through all of these things. We're on the cusp of World War III, and not a single news broadcaster, nobody has brought up the oddity of animal sacrifice in the 21st century as religious expression. And a religious expression being introduced by a group of people, an ethnicity, a long-standing cultural force on the planet, the Jewish people, who, aside from this ritual and other aspects of their religion, are absolutely rational. They lead in physics, in biology, in many sciences. And at the same time, they seem to endorse this religion. So I started saying after I finished The Light of Darkness, when I understood what was going on with blood work, that eventually we would see the fight for the third temple of Solomon. And that was, you see, what we call the Jewish, I should begin by saying it's my opinion that 99% of the people in the Jewish faith are victims themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Thank you
Just
for
like when you
saying
look
that.
at the one, just like when you look at the 1.5 billion Catholics, you can't put the child pederasty on every Catholic. Okay? You can't put the corruption of that institution at its highest levels in the Vatican on the Catholic population.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are sincerely praying. Those people are sincerely trying to live in accord with God's wishes per the instructions of their clergy. The same is true of Judaica. Okay? And so what I say today should not be taken as an aspersion of the Jewish people, because they are victims. They are absolute victims. What was done to them in World War II was done intentionally to begin Israel. The plan has always been the third temple of Solomon, and more importantly, do you know what was right beside the original third temple?
No.
Like side by side. They were like row houses. Okay? If the story of the first temple is literal. Jordan Maxwell and others say it isn't. But let's deal with the history, okay?
Yeah, please.
So, for those who aren't biblically literate, Solomon loved him some bitches. Solomon was the biggest whoremonger who ever lived, okay? He had something, according to the story, I think he had 1,000 wives. There's 365 days in a year, Donnie.
Absolute savage.
How do you service 1,000 wives? Okay.
That's next
Now
level.
the story goes that yeah, the story goes that Solomon um, got women from very many surrounding tribes. So when it comes to sexual preference, Solomon was multicultural. He loved him some bitches. Okay. And many of these women came from the neighboring tribes that, according to the Bible, were involved in some of these dark practices, right? In Babylon. Um, I personally don't buy that. I think the Bible is the story of I think it's them, and I don't think it's the past. I think it's always been going on, and what we're seeing now is the full expression of Babylon. So one of these women came from the tribe that worshipped Moloch. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I don't think it would have been called Moloch because that's how what the Hebrews call it, but a neighboring tribe worshiped Moloch. Solomon married a woman from this tribe, and she convinced him to build an altar to Moloch right beside the Temple of Solomon. And this was called, what's it called? Topethi, I think, was where they did the child sacrifices. So you've got the Temple of Solomon and the animal sacrifices, and right beside it, you've got the Temple of Moloch and the human child sacrifices.
Wow.
Now stop and think about that for a second. Okay? So
Yeah.
the force behind the migration of the Jews back to Israel, in my opinion, and these are my opinions, but I think I'm right. But I'm not going to argue as though what I'm saying is absolute, okay? Your listeners can go and do their own due diligence, and you should always do your own due diligence. Don't believe everything that some dude on the internet said, okay? Um, so I think that this is, and by the way, it's not just this whole temple thing and the ritual culture, the blood ritual culture. It is way bigger than just Jews now. Okay, so it's spread out through the secret societies. So if you go to these parties now, like the one, and apparently it's at the highest levels of banking. This is the testimony of Ronald Bernard, the Dutch banker. We we hear these stories everywhere, but nobody is connecting the dots and putting everything together. Okay,
Yeah.
so I call the Jewish people victims because they were put, I think they were put through what they were put through in World War II by their own people, by another class of Jews who worked with the Nazis. Okay? And I think the whole thing has been to get these people into that area. Okay? And it's never been so the original story was so you know how the Balfour Declaration came about. The Balfour Declaration came about because German Jews helped the British and the Allies win World War One because they were going to lose. And then the German Jews, with their connection to the Jewish community in the United States, were able to get America to join World War One,
Mhm.
and the Nazis got finished. And then the Nazis were forced to sign the Versailles Treaty, which has to be, I mean, it was a genocidal treaty.
Mhm.
It was the intent of the treaty was to destroy the German people. Okay, and I think there's a tremendous animosity between the Jews and the Germans. And again, we see the Germans. You know, who is who is the major casualty of the Ukrainian conflict aside from the dead Ukrainians and the dead Russians? It's the Germans
Mhm.
because their industrial capacity was dependent on Nord Stream 2. Okay, so again, we see the Germans, the Germans, the Germans, the Germans. So we're seeing a form of ethnic warfare in the world right now. It's already begun. Okay, so the blood culture was taught to Europeans mainly by the Jews. Okay, so this is how it got into the higher ranks of Freemasonry and numerous other secret societies. Okay, so now blood culture is multicultural, but it's pretty much at the top levels. It's run by the Jews because this is ritual culture, this is ceremonial magic, and the formulas in this work they have to be precise. I mean, the consequences can be quite severe if you get one of these rituals wrong, you know. So um, and it has always been about the third temple. Okay, so we now see the move for the third temple. Okay, just yesterday, the IDF threw tear gas into a group of tens of thousands of Palestinians at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. So the Al-Aqsa Mosque, according to the treaty, is the property of the Muslim world. Jews aren't even allowed to go to that site now and to pray because, you know,
Yep.
and so this is the way, and they don't like that. They want the temple, and it's always been about the temple. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe not for the average Jewish person living in Tel Aviv or living in Jerusalem who would be just like me and you, Donnie. Watch movies, play video games, make their money, raise their kids.
Yeah.
They're just normal people who had the karmic circumstance of being born into this culture and finishing out the soul contracts and the story of that culture. So it's my belief that you cannot tell the world. Okay, so simultaneously we have Jewish apologists in America, like Ben Shapiro, like Rabbi Shmuley, like Rabbi Barclay, and like all the other big Jewish voices. And I think every single secretary of every department in the United States, all the secretaries are Jewish now. Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, they're all Jewish. Okay? So they want the temple and they've always wanted the temple. Now, what is the temple? Okay? And why is it that a people who are, for the most part, profoundly rational, capable of excelling at high levels in calculus, physics, and science, why is this culture, why is nobody like Eric or Brett Weinstein standing up and saying, look, this blood stuff is nonsense. You know, Israel for us represents a safe haven for Jewish people. But this is the Jewish tendency, okay? They're always pushing. So they got Israel. Now they want the temple, okay? So publicly they're saying to people, look, we just want to be safe. The Muslims want to destroy us. We have to take out Gaza. Okay. Why are they doing the red heifer ritual now? By the way, the red heifer ritual is done to herald the temple. So if the Al-Aqsa Mosque is there, why in the midst of a war with the Palestinians and their Arab supporters would Israeli rabbis and Israeli politicians and the Mossad be pushing for the Al-Aqsa Mosque in the middle of the... Would that not be the olive branch that you offer to your enemies? Look, we're not going to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Islam. Okay, now I don't know what the second is. The first is Mecca. Okay, now, so destroying that mosque is literally World War III. It is World War III. Okay. So the heifers are a blood ritual. What is blood? Blood, as we discussed in our previous interviews, Donnie, blood is multidimensional currency. It's two-dimensional currency. It's a coin you use to trade with the astral plane. And the astral plane has all kinds of forces in it that will do your bidding if you feed them. As I explained in my last interview with you, it's like feeding a dog. If you get yourself a German Shepherd or an American Staffordshire Terrier or a Rottweiler and you feed that dog, it's going to protect your house. Now, if you feed these things on the other side, they're going to do things for you. This is the principle of magic. This is how Palo Mayombe works. This is how Santeria works, and this is how voodoo works. Okay?
Yeah, just to add to that, I really see magic like it's a technology, and
it is
blood ritual magic, right? And basically, most of their control systems that they use, even the media, right? This is a form of magic. This is a form of, it is all magic, and it's a form of technology.
Yeah, look, I find it very interesting the way everything has worked. Okay, so the 20th century I mean, if you go back to the first chapter of the middle part of The Devil in Us, and there's there's no thesis here. If you don't remember the book that well, there's a lot in my books.
Mhm.
You're not going to get everything reading them once. You're going to have to read them 3 or 4 times to let everything sink in because they're so dense with information. But the first chapter, there are 3 sections to The Devil in Us. The first one is The Devil in Me, and I talk about my upbringing in a cursed family. The middle section, which is the biggest, is The Devil in Us. And the third section is God and Me and You. Okay? And so in the first chapter of the second section, The Devil in Us, it's called Our Last Free Breath. And it's about how the scientific advancements of the 20th century created a consciousness in the West which threw away what it thought were superstitions from its past. Okay? So you try to explain to somebody in the 21st century that magic is as real and operative as turning the key in a car and the car starting.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that if magic is directed at you, it's always going to work. These days, because people are so spiritually dilapidated, the aura is so weakened with the chemicals in the food, the spraying and everything they're doing at a chemical level, the food, the water, the sky, is to weaken the human system. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Break down the defenses, okay? And so we went through the 20th century. We got all of these fantastic things, okay? Things we never had before. It was the greatest leap forward in several thousand years. We got the dislocated voice in the form of the radio, which has evolved to where we're at now, 120. I think the radio came out in 1905. Here we are 119 years later, and this is basically the same technology. I call it dislocated voice technology. So you can project your voice further than where your physical body is. You're in Canada, I'm in Costa Rica, we're conversing. It's evolved to video now. It's evolved to this entire two-dimensional exchange. The second thing was illumination at night. Okay, so the electrification of cities, and this was done by adopting Edison's AC/DC system. And the third thing is rapid transport. Okay, so we finally were able to travel faster than horse or bicycle. Now, trains existed, but what the automobile did was it liberated people completely. Okay. So just like the entities on the other side are bought off with blood, the human race is sort of bought off the technology. Nobody wanted to think about religion anymore by about the 1970s. Nobody wanted to think about spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And we've lost all of this ancestral knowledge we had about what these things were. There was a time in our cultural histories where everybody knew these things. Certainly in my cultural history, which is Celtic, they very much understood through the Druidic system and through the Tuatha De Danann and all of the magical systems and the Irish gods, the Tuatha De Danann. They certainly knew what blood ritual was. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But now nobody's talking about this. Absolutely nobody is talking about this. I am just waiting for someone to look in a video exchange to look Ben Shapiro or one of these public-facing North American Jewish voices and say, can you explain to the Gentiles what the significance of the blood rituals in the temple are?
Well,
Okay.
just on that point, there is this post on Twitter. I forget the lady's name, but she's from the Daily Wire, and she's just like, she's posing in front of the red heifers, and she's just like, oh, like almost like a, like a pop article, like, oh, 5 facts about the red heifer you might not know. One, it's not actually a sacrifice because we slaughter them first, then burn them. And then,
Yeah.
like they're making it sound like this is normal behavior. It's like you're literally.
Does anybody eat the meat?
No.
Okay, so the characteristic of a magical ritual is that the energy of the animal sacrificed is taken out of the normal circle of economy of consumption. That is the ritual. Because when I was going over this with Bob, I said, look, we raise chickens up here, right? We get chicks for about $1 a piece, and then for about maybe $100 worth of chick feed, you can raise 25 chicks to 2 kilogram chickens in about 7 weeks. Okay. And we used to do this a lot. I don't do it so much. I went back to being a vegetarian up here, much to my wife's chagrin, because she has a diet like a wolf. But we used to raise and kill chickens here. And Bob is explaining all this stuff to me in the light of darkness 4 years ago, and I'm going, whoa, Bob, wait a second. So if my wife is pissed off with me and she kills 25 chickens in a day, which she often does in a kill cycle when our chickens mature, like, how does that affect me? He said, first thing he says is, the meat's consumed, right? He said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, the whole point, the point of the ritual is to kill the animal in vain. Okay?
Yeah,
to kill the animal in vain.
Intent, putting it ill intent, yeah.
Yes. Yes. So we are basically witnessing a giant black magic ritual. Okay? Yeah. And it's always black magic. You cannot convert blood sacrificed. I mean, so, okay, some of the Santeria and Palomayombe and voodoo people you talk to, and I've talked to dozens of these people since The Light of Darkness came out. I mean, they reach out to me, right? And how did you know this? Well, I read the initiatic document for Palomayombe, which is prohibited unless you initiate, but nonetheless, I did. And I asked them, you know, is this always used negatively? And they said, no. I mean, you can do rituals to help people, to help them gain prosperity or to recover health or something like this. So I guess you could maybe make the case that there are some positive effects to blood magic, but not really. No, I mean, it's almost always done to curse or kill somebody. Okay.
And Yom Kippur, we should touch on that. A lot of people don't realize that Yom Kippur, a certain sects of Judaism, they literally take all of their sin and they put it into a chicken and they beat it almost to death. And then they give that chicken away to non-Jews to eat. And this is in PETA and all these groups in New York were trying to stop the Orthodox Jews from doing this because they were beating chickens in the street.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that video, actually. I saw that, yeah. So let's just discuss that for a second. It's 2024. We're on the verge of going into space. You know, we're at these technological heights, and we're dealing with a group of people who believe they can atone for their sins by killing an animal. Okay? It's the most ridiculous fucking thing you're ever going to hear in your life. And we're supposed to sit back and take this because we don't want to infringe upon their religious rights. Okay? Nonsense. Okay. So, the temple, interestingly, always gets destroyed very, very quickly. Okay? So, hang on a sec. When was the second temple of Solomon built? 515 BC. So they had that one for about 500 years, okay? And then it was destroyed in AD 70, okay? And then the one before that was supposed to be, I think 400 years before that is when Solomon was, which would have been about 900 BC. So they keep returning to building this temple. Now, why do they build the temple? Well, they build the temple because it's a magical structure. If you read about how the stones are meant to be worm that would sort of cleanly, according to them, God instructed them that they could not cut the stone. It could not be chiseled. They had to get this worm that would sort of chew through the stones and make the blocks. According to rabbinical interpretation in the 21st century, lasers will suffice. So the stone, it'll be much easier to build the temple this time, okay? I heard they have it already, prefab already built, okay?
Yeah, likely.
And yeah, absolutely. So I know what magic can do what blood magic can do when practiced by a competent tata in Palo Mayombe. Okay, this is one guy, one little altar in his backyard. Usually it has to be a closed, windowless room. Okay, and that's exactly what the inner chamber of the Temple of Solomon is. Okay,
Mhm.
the Holy of Holies, they call it. So you can do, Palo Mayombe claims that they can take a person of modest origins, elevate them to the world stage, and keep them in that position for their entire lifetime with their magical practices. Okay? That's one tata and a few chickens. Okay? Now, here's another question, and I want you to answer this one. If you were going to do the red heifer ritual, why would you advertise it? Why would you not just, it's a private Jewish thing. I mean, these people are notoriously tight-lipped about their religious rituals and their religious practices. Every other religion in the world, in some way, shape, or form, proselytizes, meaning it goes out and it seeks people who may be interested in baptizing or initiating into the path if it's Buddhism or something like that, okay? Judaism is the only religion in the world that does not proselytize. Well, Voodoo doesn't either. You have to find it. Palo Mayombe does. The dark ones don't. They basically wait for the people to come and find them. So if you're dealing with a secret and private religious culture, which is not generally shared with the world, why would you advertise the ritual of the red heifers? I'll let you take a crack at that.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question actually, and it gets into the nature of spelling and ritual. In that, when you have
Yeah,
more people's minds focused on a particular event or point in time space, you actually enhance the power of the ritual. Whether or not people are
absolutely.
adherents to it or not, agree with it or not, or just saying it because they hate it. In fact, if people hate the ritual or are disgusted, that's arguably even more power.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I have kind of a hierarchy of religions in the world, okay? So not a hierarchy, but an explanation of them, okay? So each religion holds a certain region, okay? So the Catholic religion is very much an astral religion, very dualistic. You have a devil, you have God. They don't work together. The devil wants to destroy God's creation, okay? Fundamentally, a fallacious um, spiritual truth. Not true at all, okay? But from the astral perspective, it is true. The fourth dimension is right above us, it's right above the physical. I would say the Buddhists are really the masters of time. Buddha really focused on karma. So what the Buddha was trying to do was liberate people from having to reincarnate here again. The Abrahamic systems are cyclic. You may, if you live the way you're supposed to live within those religions, like the Christian religions, you may have a good rest in between lives, but you're coming back. Okay? The Buddhists are trying to pull souls out of incarnation into this planet and giving them more of a liberty to go out and explore the galaxy and go to other places. I would say the Hindus more than, and especially the Vedics, I would say that they represent what I would call cosmic consciousness, which is the mental plane.
Okay.
And that's why there's so much miraculous stuff. Okay, and mind-bending stuff in yoga. I mean, they can kill themselves, raise themselves from the dead. They can do all. I mean, there's when you get into this and you start to study it, read a few books, and there's no limit to what a yogi can do. I mean, an advanced yogi could do almost everything that Christ could do. Okay, nobody talks about this. Okay. So that's your cosmic consciousness. And then we have another class of being that comes to the planet, which transcends them all. And these are the true representatives of the creator. And they give very, 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 very simple teachings. Their teachings are always about love and forgiveness. Okay? So if you're in a spiritual path and they're giving you some kind of word salad, Sanskrit, calculus to do something specific, that's the mental plane. Okay? And if you do what they tell you to do and you do it correctly, the result will probably be correct. I mean, the results are very consistent in these paths. So if you take an 18-year-old kid and you initiate him into Buddhism and he goes into a monastery and he meditates all his life, chances are he's going to achieve the Buddha consciousness. Not all of them, but there's a distinct chance if you sincerely dedicate an entire life, you're going to achieve Buddha consciousness, okay? Mm-hmm. So where does the Jewish faith fit into this? It's my belief that the Jews represent the hell region on earth. Okay? That they represent the demonic force on earth. Now, I'm not calling them demonic. Okay? But they represent or work with the demonic energies more than any other religion on the planet. This was really I'm not making these things up. I mean, it's right in their own scripture. I mean, Solomon with the ring. So what are the two most prominent magical devices in the prophetic lineage? Now, Solomon wasn't a prophet, mind you. Moses had the magical staff like Gandalf, and Solomon had the ring. Now, the signet ring controlled the demons. And the demons, according to the mythology of Judaica, built the Temple of Solomon, the first Temple of Solomon. Okay? So what is the Temple of Solomon? What does the Temple of Solomon mean in context to a globalized world? What does the Temple of Solomon mean in context to them becoming the dominant religion in the world? And I know this sounds crazy, like a conspiracy theory, but they're about 9, 10. When you listen to these rabbis in these interviews now with Candace Owens, they're speaking in the framework of Noahide law. Yeah. Rabbi Barclay said directly to Candace Owens, Rabbi Shmuley has the right to attack and criticize you. You don't have the right to attack him. Said it right to her. They're not even hiding their arrogance anymore. Okay?
Yeah, let's just now. Can we just talk about the Noahide laws, because it's actually very important. So my understanding is that exactly as you said. Judaism is actually an exclusive religion. It's a religion based off bloodline, right? It's not a universalist religion like Christianity or even Islam, right? However, one of their core tenets is to actually bring everybody under Noahide law. And so this is where you get the kind of Judeo-Christian Daily Wire type stuff, where Andrew Klavan, who's a self-described Christian, is saying, it's actually better that Ben Shapiro doesn't convert because that might be a burden on his family. If you're a Christian and you believe Jesus died for your sins and he's your savior, well, don't you think you should convert everybody to Christianity, right? And so there is this Noahide law that they're trying to get everybody under, and maybe you could just walk people through that concept.
Yeah, so the Jews are looking to do globally what the Vatican did in Europe and what the Vatican did to the colonial outposts that the Portuguese went to, the Spanish went to. They're looking to spread and take control over the world to create a theological fiefdom. Okay? It's now quite normal to laugh at that. We're actually in a state of penance right now. So the irony of the situation we're in now is white Christians are publicly being held to account for their record in the last 500 years, the colonialization, which was generally done under either the flag of the Vatican or the flag of the Anglican Church, okay? Mm-hmm. For the most part. Because, it's interesting that Germany never went out. I find that interesting that they never went out and tried to colonize, right? Mm-hmm. Because they were have always been one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, European force. But they were never. I guess it's because they're landlocked, are they not? I need to look at a map here. Maybe that's why I think they're landlocked, but. No, they're not. Hold on a sec. Let me just check the map here. Anyways, they never went out and tried to control the world. And oh yeah, they're. Why can't I see Germany? Oh, there it is. No, they're actually. No, there's Hamburg. No, they're not landlocked. They could have gone out. They could have colonized. Okay, so they didn't. But we're now living in a world where we are being told that what the Vatican did was wrong. It's taught in universities. There's a penance now. Okay, and at the very same time, there's a new religious force trying to colonize the world under Noahide law. And the very same force that said the Vatican had no right to do that. Now, I don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, it was just the Vatican is a very ugly thing too. What they did was very, very ugly. You know, have you been watching Shogun on FX, the remake of Shogun?
No, no.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely fascinating story about a conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants in Japan for the expansion of their
Oh,
territories, right?
hmm. Okay.
So it's absolutely fascinating. Those who are watching it will know what I'm talking about. Okay, so we're now being colonized by this this Jewish force. Now they're not doing it with ships. They're not doing it with cannons. Their principal tool is the leverage of the financial system.
Hmm.
And this has, for the most part, it's changed a little bit in maybe the last 15 years or so. But the world of money and the world of banking was it was as closely as identified with Jewish culture as hockey is with Canadian. Okay, and it's a powerful force. And as I explain in the light of darkness, money as it's presently used, the fiat note system, is a powerful system of magic. Okay, absolutely powerful system of magic. So to get back to your question, what is Noahide law? The descendants of Noah were commanded with 7 precepts to establish laws and the prohibitions of number 1, blasphemy, number 2, idolatry, number 3, adultery, number 4, bloodshed, number 5, theft, and number 6, eating the blood of a living animal. Is that blasphemy, idolatry, adultery, bloodshed, theft? That's only 6. I don't see the 7th here.
Oh,
But when you get deeper into it, it's a class system. It's basically the dot on the forehead. The Jew has the best color, and everybody else is like sort of untouchable, right? And another thing too that I find unbelievably strange is the Jewish diaspora population has been an extraordinary force in the diversification of Western societies and the pluralization of those societies for multiple religious expression, rights of minorities, rights of women, and now really the transgender thing is an extension of the Jewish thing as well, because when you get into the Kabbalah and what's really going on here, they believe, according to their scripture, that the age of Aquarius will be this sort of non-gender age, and so they're leading us into this. This whole transgender thing is not scientific, folks. It's religious. Okay? Understand that. And the one
yeah.
thing transgenderism does is it prevents a people who get heavily involved in it will stop breeding and go out. Okay? So very,
Yeah.
very strange. So it's a
Just on
two.
the Noahide laws, Bruce. Number 7 is establish courts of law and ensure justice in our world, and it's Noahide courts. And so there's actually Adam Green. I had him on a while ago. He exposed that it, people in Israel are actually trying to push the world courts and the UN to adopt Noahide laws as like fundamental. And one thing that isn't really known is that Christians are in adherence mostly with Noahide laws from the perspective of Judaism, aside from the fact that they believe the worship of Christ itself is idolatry. And the punishment of a Gentile violating the Noahide laws is actually beheading.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it is beheading. And It's not just Jesus that is defined as idolatry by the rabbinical circles. It's Hinduism is idolatry. I think they leave. I think Buddhism, because of the statue, is idolatry as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, every religion other than Judaism is idolatry. So if they get to the point where they have Noahide law and you don't obey them, they're just going to kill you. And when you look at the amount of depopulation that's going on in the world now, it seems like very much an expression of Noahide law. Now, the question you have to ask yourself, Donnie, is, and I ask myself this all the time, and I don't have an answer. How could a people have acquired this power? What is the power that these people have so that British prime ministers fall in line, Canadian well, Trudeau is sort of falling in line. Did you see the news out of Argentina? So we watched this radical, loudmouth populist in Argentina run for the presidency and win, Milei. Okay? He was born a Catholic, and he's in the process of converting to Chabad Judaism, which, in my opinion, is the most batshit crazy sect of the whole thing. Okay? So when every other religion in the world, like Hinduism, Christianity, everybody talks about a great spiritual figure coming, they talk about light and love and redemption. Again, another instance of the Jews doing a 180. Their great figure, the Mashiach, is a destroyer. Okay? He comes to punish the enemies of the Jews. Okay? He comes to punish them. So there's just so many ironies now. And unless you understand the religious backtext, you're not going to understand what's going on. Now, let's circumscribe everything. Okay? The Temple of Solomon is going to be to magic what CERN is to science. Okay? So throughout history, in the beginning of the 20th century, you always see this almost double helix commingling of bizarre occult practices and advanced sciences. L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, I mean, all of them. Okay? Yeah. Aleister Crowley. Okay? And if you ever look at the picture of the demon that Aleister Crowley engaged in Egypt, Lamb, it looks exactly like a gray alien.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what is this really all about? It's about the human race breaking the boundary between the third dimension and the fourth dimension. You see, the ghosts, the demons, the scary stuff, your dead relatives, extraterrestrials, they all exist in this same space. Okay, this fourth dimension. Now, the unique characteristic of the extraterrestrials is they can project out of it and come into materialization in the physical plane. Okay, so this is another interesting thing that people don't understand. So when a rational person looks at history, they think only within the container of physical reality, and they think of a chain of sequence to define what has happened. They never account for things coming into this reality, magically or through portals. Okay? So if we go to globalization and we get the third temple of Solomon and it becomes the de facto religion of the world and Noahide law, we will officially come under the darkest of controls on this planet, and it will be very difficult to break. Like we're not going to be able to break it unless something more powerful comes in and helps us. And that may very well happen.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just want to unpack what you said there, right? So you're basically have you watched Stranger Things, the show?
Yeah, all 4 seasons.
Right?
That's basically non-fiction, by the way.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what you're describing. You know, they call it the upside down, which is like the
It's everywhere, Donnie.
Yeah.
Avengers 1, the portal opens and the Chittahuli come through. Have you seen the portal that CERN creates? It looks exactly like the portal they put in Avengers 1.
Yeah. They're telling us they're
They're
definitely.
telling us all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and CERN, I actually want to post it in my Telegram group. And guys, if you haven't yet, join my Telegram group. I also created a discussion group for people to just chat, share stuff. But the CERN was busted for doing a mock human sacrifice.
yeah,
The last time they turned on their machine, and then in the past week they said, "Oh, we had an entity come through last time," and then they're
yeah,
talking about demon face, which is a psychological um, uh, affliction where people see all people's faces as demons. This is coming out
yeah,
in mainstream news everywhere right before they're turning on, so yeah, they really seem to be wanting to like make a rift open in the between the fourth dimension and us, and we've talked on previous streams. It seems like to me since COVID, they honestly have opened some type of portal because it seems
yeah,
like the gates of hell are open. Like the just
yeah,
blatantly satanic shit everybody's doing, like openly
yeah.
worldwide is like it's it's crazy, Bruce. So yeah, I just wanted to set that
Yeah.
up as a backdrop because it seems like they're really trying
So
to
I say,
you know yeah.
so when I get into an argument with a Christian friend or a Christian acquaintance, and they say, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, Bruce, this or that," I say, "Well, look, I'm not even a Christian, but I've taken the biblical remedy because I read the Bible as the plan of the controllers of the planet, not as the prophecy of God." And I think they're going to have the power to execute it. So they do give an out for anybody who wants to escape it. And you have to leave the Babylonian system, and you have to set yourself apart, which means go and live in nature and grow your own food. So I talked to none of my Christian friends have done this. And I said, well, I mean, I'm more Christian than you. And because I'm actually taking the remedy in the Bible. You know, it's just like unbelievable how stupid these people are. And this comes at a time. The interesting thing about the timing of all this is it comes at a time when the spiritual consciousness of humanity, I don't think, has ever been lower. Now, throw into effect as well the electromagnetic frequencies that began with the invention of the radio and have just amplified for the last 120 years. If you live in a major city now, you are constantly bathing in these electromagnetic frequencies. They're also chewing away at your aura. Now, what happens when your aura gets holes in it? Do you know, Donnie?
um I would say it leaves you more vulnerable to attack. It leaves you open to possession.
Precisely, precisely, precisely. Okay? So the ultimate goal is to, man, I don't know if I should say this out loud. I mean, there's only a few people on the planet who know this. I didn't know. It was explained to me by Bob. The only other guy I've ever heard speak about it is Christopher John Bjerkens. And it has to do specifically with what we call the light in darkness. Okay? So there is a light in darkness. So the rabbis want to go into this dark world. Okay, and the dark world exists. I've been there. I went there for 3 days while writing The Light of Darkness. It's real. Okay, and I know this all sounds crazy. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's all real. And if you don't start to understand what's going on around you, you're in for a world of misery now. So the next phase of the plan is to take out the upper middle class in the Western world. And we all have friends like this, people who worked really hard, got a chartered financial analyst designation, or became lawyers or doctors. And these are the people who, with their property and everything, are worth between 10 and 25 million, which is a very successful upper middle class life if you can make. But if you invest well, my brother did it. My brother's probably worth about 20 million, started out with nothing, was a vice president at TD Bank. You want to hear something interesting?
Yeah.
So I got to know a lot of the vice presidents at the TD Bank a number of years, more than a decade and a half ago. Not a single one of them bought their homes with less than a 60, 70% down payment. And when you ask them, they just look at you and you go, only a fool borrows that much money at interest. So they'll sell the business to other people and make their living off it, but are stupid. It's like the CEO of Monsanto not feeding that food to his own children, right? So the bankers themselves know. My brother waited till he had about a 60% down payment on his home before he bought a home. And he and his wife lived in this crappy little one-bedroom apartment, even when he was making over $200,000 a year. Okay? Because they understand money, because
Yeah.
they work in money. You know this too. You come from a financial background as well, don't you?
Yeah, and I've never been in debt, and I never. Yeah, I have the same
I've
mindset.
ne
Yeah.
So I was raised by an economist who worked for the government. It's all explained in the last book I wrote, The Devil in Us. My dad taught me very well about money. I've never in my life had a credit card, Donnie. I'm
Nice.
57 years old, 58 in July. I've never had a credit card. When I was in the game, I had earning years as high as $170,000 in a year. My best years were when the market was competing for IT resources and development resources, and they were split between Y2K and new development. That was the heyday for people in that sector, right?
Mhm.
Because it was just incredible. You could get into bidding wars.
That's crazy.
People were bidding on you. It was like going to the NHL draft. You start a job on Monday for $60 US an hour. I'm down in Michigan, and by Wednesday I've got a phone call. Would you leave Michigan and come work for us for $70 an hour, Bruce? I never did that. I never jumped around. Once I signed a contract, I finished it. But it was crazy, right?
Yeah.
So circling back, this is what I think the third temple is. It will be a horrible thing if these people get what they want. Now, according to their prophecy, they get it. Okay. Now, this is why I warn anybody in the Abrahamic systems to be cautious. Okay. I always give the same warning, Donnie. I give it to my Muslim friends and I give it to my Christian friends. I point out to them that they're in a system of spiritual teaching that has a lineage of 28 teachers that are called prophets. Okay. I guess 26 if you're Jewish. Okay. But the canon of wisdom in this and this happens quite often, by the way. In the Sikh system, there were 10 masters in a row over a few hundred years to lay down the teaching, okay, for the Sikhs. And it's a fascinating religion. Taoism gets four major teachers, okay? Lao Tzu, Lietzu, Hua Tzu, and Hu Tzu, the four pillars of Taoism, okay? So this idea of a religious system being seeded into a culture over a line of teachers is very common,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
Jews have it too, and the Abrahamics have it too, and they have about 28 major prophets. Now, if you're a Christian, you're only engaging one of them. Okay, if you're a Muslim, you sort of gather up all the prophetic traditions, because if you're a Muslim and a serious Muslim, about 90% of your time is going to be studying the work of Muhammad, but you will be much more aware of who Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, and all Isaiah and all of these people are, much more than the average Christian. Now, evangelicism is beginning to bring in the other prophets now, but basically what they're becoming is de facto Jews. Okay. So I believe, this is just my opinion, and I don't want to get shot for saying this. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not because I was born in a Catholic family. Okay. It's based on my own study of the system. The only person worth listening to in that entire system is Christ. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That's it. That lines up with the yogis. That lines up with what I call universal spirituality. Okay? So this
Yeah.
is where we're at, Don. We're at the cusp of hell's doors being opened. You're gonna unbelievable amount of people are gonna die in the next. It's starting now. Okay, even the people dying from the medical regimen we've been under since 2020. those numbers are just going to increase and increase and increase, because the longer that stuff is in your system, the more damage it does and the more compromise it does to the immune system. So we're being killed.
Oh, dude, no,
Okay?
we're gonna get
We're
so
being
banned on the stream. Just thinking back all the
I didn't
stuff
I
we've
was
been saying.
very careful. I
No, no,
was
you're
very
fine. You're
careful.
fine. There's no issues. I'm just. No, it's great. Sorry. No, please continue. I don't want you to stop at all. I was just kind of laughing. we just
All
we've
right,
said
so
everything that you get flagged for. So I don't care. Keep going.
yeah, well, I didn't say any specific. It's all algorithms and bots, Donnie. They're looking for specific words. They're not going to pick this out.
I don't. Oh, you're
Okay.
good. You're good. For real. I'm just kind of
Anyways,
laughing. I'm
my
just thinking of all the stuff
my
we've been
my
talking about. Yeah.
my my point is, anybody who has not grasped yet that we are in an intentional depopulation event is just not paying attention, or they're lying because they like their life. They like their, $2.6 million a year, like Anderson Cooper was getting at CNN or something like this. They're lying for their own benefit. And this is another aspect of the time we live in. People are so venal. I mean, people will sell their souls now for a nickel, or just for the continuity of a mediocre life, which is like $80,000 a year and a pension,
Yeah.
right? And benefits. How many people have the balls to just go off in the middle of nowhere, build a house, and say, okay, I'm responsible for my health. I'm responsible. Now, if I needed an operation, I would get it done here in Costa Rica, pay out of pocket, right? Not a big deal. But generally, you're responsible for your health.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So a human being should be taking as complete responsibility for their life. You want to know, folks, what the best way to take care of your health is? Fast at least 4 times a year and make each fast a minimum of 3 days. And it would be better if you went to 11 days. No solid food for 11 days. Now, as my son pointed out when he was here, he says, Dad, who can do that other than you? I mean, you control your time, you work from home. What about the people who have to go through the stress of getting on a sub? I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I think this is why the Bible says when you see these signs, you're in the end times, get out of the Babylonian system, because the Babylonian system and its rigors prevent you from living a spiritual life, prevent you from healing yourself, prevent you from doing all the things you need to do.
Oh, for sure. I just want to dive back into the Depop discussion, because I'm kind of torn on this. So, yeah, I guess I'll be somewhat careful, as you have been as well. But it's clear that excess mortality has been happening, and it's clear that certain people who got a certain intervention.
Have you seen the latest statistics?
Well, I'm looking at.
Have you seen the latest statistics?
Like, I'm watching the Ed Dowd stuff, and I'm watching these other guys. They're kind of saying 20-30% excess in the G20, right? Is that kind of where you're seeing you're seeing? 20-30% excess.
Well, the latest stat I heard was, I think, earlier this week, Tucker Carlson interviewed a guy named Dr. Corey on his show, and he was saying that in 2023 there were 158,000 excess deaths from the norm over the last since they've started recording it.
Yeah.
And he said this is on top of everything else they've accounted for. People are going to come back and say, well, maybe you didn't factor in the fentanyl overdoses, Bruce. No. Everything is factored in. Even with the fentanyl and all the other stuff, there's still, in the United States alone, 158,000 excess deaths. You know who's talking about it the most, Donnie?
Insurance companies.
Life insurance executives.
Yeah, I've seen that.
They're going to go bankrupt. Yeah, they're going to go bankrupt. Right?
Well, here in Alberta, do you know what the #1 cause of death is?
No.
It's unknown cause. That's now the #1 cause of death in Alberta. Unknown.
Oh my God. I gotta ask, what in the hell is going on? And I'm deviating a little bit here, but I'm very curious.
That's fine.
What in the hell is going on with Chrystia Freeland? She looks like she's on bad
Yeah,
coke the whole time.
she's
It's
bugging, man. She's bugging out. That's drugs. 100%.
what
I
is
think,
that? MK Ultra programming breakdown? Like, what's going on there?
dude, I don't know. Canada's getting so dark. It's
Yeah,
incredible. It's But Alex Jones just gave a shout out to Pierre Polyev. So everybody,
yeah.
all the CPC guys are, oh yeah. But then a lot of the other people are starting to be like, oh, maybe Alex Jones is controlled opposition, because they know Pierre is just the same. He's gonna do all the same stuff, just maybe a little less crazy, unfortunately. So
You think
yeah,
he's going to do all the same stuff?
yeah. He like they. I mean, to me, I think the million immigrants a year is the most destructive force, and he says he wants to do it more and quicker and smarter. And all the stuff Trudeau's done, even axing the tax, he just wants to kind of put it on producers. Yeah, basically, I think he might roll back 20% of the damage and then keep the program going just slower. That's my opinion.
But he'll just. I think the changes will be cosmetic, and if he gets back into office in the next election, he'll be even worse. I do, I do favor Pierre over Justin. I do,
Yeah.
and I know. Look, I it seems to me, Donnie, that there's only really two routes in the world right now when you look at politics globally. So let's take the example I didn't finish before, but I started to talk about this guy Milei in Argentina.
Yep.
So you hear these speeches. He wants to do in these nutty socialists that have destroyed Argentina. Okay, used to be a wonderful economy. I think it had the most robust economy in Latin America, and absolutely got destroyed by these socialist slash communist people who got into the government there. I'm watching Milei in the ramp up to the election. I'm going, I love this guy. I love this guy. Then I find out he's converting to Chabad. And last week I see on X that Argentina has ordered $897 million worth of sex transition drugs. So there's nobody. The solution to the problems in the world now, folks, are set yourself apart. Nobody's going to save you. You have to save yourself. Nobody's going to save you. It's not going to be Pierre. It's not going to be Trump. It's not going to be anybody but you. Okay? Because what's going on now is unstoppable. Because the forces that want it to happen control all of the major institutions in the first world: medicine, education, and finance. You can't escape it. No leader can change it. Okay? The only thing you can do is set yourself apart, like Donnie did in rural Alberta and like I did in the rainforest in Costa Rica. And you got to have as much of your own food as you can have. And then you're going to look, here's the good news. If you survive the next 10 years or so, it's going to be a nice life. I mean, you're going to be able to buy with the Depop, you're going to be able to find like a 2-year-old Toyota Tercel for $200. You're going to be able to buy like a 2020 in 2027. You're going to be able to buy a 2025 Toyota Camry secondhand for like $400, because there's all the production in the world now is geared to 8 billion people. Or let's say if you take just the first world, so let's say 37 million in Canada, 330 in the United States. Let's say 360 million there, 700 million in Europe. Let's say 1 billion people, okay? So when you look at the production on, Apple computers, automobiles, they're producing for 1 billion people, okay? That's going to be about half in about probably 5 years. So what happens to all the excess production, right? Well, if you make it through, it's going to be like that show where they open up the storage container and there's all this stuff, and it's just you get whatever you want. And I'm not saying this to be grimly jocular or morbid in my humor, but I am trying to make a little light of the situation.
Well,
I am not afraid of death.
no,
Okay,
I appreciate that. Yeah,
I believe our lives are written. There's nothing to fear in death. There's no judgment on the other side. Your number one spiritual responsibility is to learn to give and receive love unconditionally. That is the spiritual goal of any human being, is to not block love. Okay? That's it. So if you make it through this, it's gonna be a very interesting time on the other side. But a lot of people are not going to make it through this, and
Yeah.
we're just beginning to see how crazy things are going to get, right?
Yeah, it's just, I'm still, I used to be a lot more concerned. Now it's like, I don't know, man. I think they're just going to keep this thing going, and it's just going to be slow decline constantly. And they always build us up to be afraid that it's right around the corner. But I don't know. Like, I see people getting, they're on the sixth, intervention, and they're doing just fine. They're like hiking mountains, and I'm just trying to tell them, like, stop doing that. Like, no, bad, stop. And they're totally fine. And I've seen several people get bad stuff, and we have a few people that I think are probably died from it. But I don't know. It's like all the stuff they do, what they're spraying, like all our food is toxic, all the, testosterone dropping 1 point a year, but yet humans are still hanging on. So I feel like maybe I'm naive. Maybe it finally is the train over the cliff, as they say. But I feel like it's just going to be the perpetual slow decline, so that there isn't like a mass panic, but
So
who knows? Yeah.
I'll give you my take on what's going to happen. We don't beat them; they beat themselves. They're gonna when you're forces like this generally self-consume or self-immolate, forces this dark. So when you openly attack them, you're actually giving them energy. So and realize this as you get into debates online and you get into arguments with people, especially as it surrounds this topic of Israel and stuff like this, that the negative practitioners or the representatives of the hell energy on earth, which I would characterize as the Jewish religion, they feed off that energy. You're actually giving them energy, and that's why in that culture they always try to drag you into conflict. Okay? But you've got to do your best to avoid it, because you're just giving them energy. And there's no getting through to these people. You're not going to get through to Ben Shapiro. You're not going to get through to Rabbi Shmuley. You're not going to get through, who, by the way, has 9 kids, while probably advocating for the depopulation of Gentiles. He himself has 9 kids, right?
Yeah, but man, it's so, like, there is this mass awakening to the kind of badness of Judaism, and I'm kind of concerned because, as you said, I
The
believe,
rabbis.
yeah,
The rabbis, not Jews themselves. Remember,
exactly.
they're just people like you and me. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying, and I really love the distinction, because I'm worried that kind of baby out with the bathwater. We're seeing that, like, just generic attack and hatred towards all Jews, and I totally rebuke that, and it's hard for people to really because it's been hidden from them for so long. Like, for example, 2012, okay, babies die of herpes in ritual circumcision by Orthodox Jews. ABC News, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one.
Do you want to explain to people how they get the herpes?
Yes, I mean, without being too graphic, essentially they're doing a circumcision, and then they're using essentially their mouth.
Yeah, the rabbi sucks a little bit of the blood.
Yeah. So, and dozens of cases just in New York of this. Like, that to me is satanic, and that needs to be called out. This is like crazy. And then here's another one. This is by Kitea Area. I had to take my dirty panties to a rabbi, and so has every Orthodox Jewish woman. In the Orthodox Judaism, women literally have to take their white panties to the rabbi to be inspected, and they track all these women's menstrual cycles. It's like, it's so crazy, and
I've never heard that one. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, basically the third pillar of Orthodox Judaism, family purity, or niddah, is one very few people outside of this insular world are aware of. However, if broken, the laws accompanying it carry a far greater penalty in the world next to that. It's equivalent to breaking the Sabbath. So, what are the laws? The laws are family purity, revolve around the color of a woman's vaginal discharge. You see, beginning on the days when she anticipates her period, a husband and wife are forbidden from having any sexual relations until 7 days following the end of her period. And basically, yeah, it keeps going here. I'll send you the article, but essentially, the rabbi has to like inspect her panties for sexual purity, and this is happening. Like think about how messed up that is. Like think about in Christianity. Imagine like having to take your wife's panties to the pastor to be like, "Is my wife pure?" Like
Yeah.
it feels satanic to me. You know, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. You know, there's so many of these things that people are finding out, and so I'm worried that there's gonna, because part of the back to the red heifer is there is basically a, like in the end times everybody turns against Israel, right? And that's how they get, you know, that's part of the prophecy of the end times. So I'm worried that people are going to turn against everyday normal Jews, you know, when people start finding out this information. So it's good to talk about it openly and to distinguish, like, guys, this isn't all Jewish people. In the same way it's not all Catholics, you know, in the same way it's not all,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, it's freaky stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're breaking up a little bit, right? They're breaking the Jews are breaking up. I think, you know, they've always been a unified group because they've been a diaspora of people. First of all, let's sing their praises for a moment. Let's take a moment and reflect upon the unbelievable cultural tenacity to keep their traditions alive and to get synagogues built as a diaspora people since 70 AD. I mean, come on, man, give them their due. I mean, they're a remarkable people, man, like
Yeah.
remarkable people. But now is the end. You know, the end of the story in the Abrahamic scriptures is now, and it's for all of them have a different version of it, but it's the end for all of them. It's the end for Judaica, it's the end for Christians, and it's the end for Muslims. Okay, so and you know, I mean, I cannot believe I live in a world where not one single major news commentator, you know, is pointing out that, look, why would you, the idea of doing the sacrifice now, the red heifers, you're basically tacitly saying, indirectly, you're saying to the Islamic world, we're going to build the temple. And you're doing this at a time where you're trying to rationalize mass murder to the rest of the world. Do you know that every hospital in Gaza has been destroyed? I think there were 28. There's none now.
Wow.
Do you know that do you know that the IDF executed doctors? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
recently, right?
the doctors didn't pick up guns and fight the IDF. I mean, that is absolutely sacrosanct in war. You do not kill medical practitioners. You do not bomb a Red Cross ambulance. That was sacrosanct. Do you know that's what Hemingway did in World War I? He drove a Red Cross ambulance. Okay, and that's why he saw so much carnage. So it's just mind-boggling, Donnie. And I can't believe anybody. What about all the religious people or spiritual people? I mean, where the fuck is Sadhguru on this? He undoubtedly knows what's going on. Why isn't he saying anything? Why isn't the Dalai Lama saying anything? Why isn't the Pope saying anything? Okay? What? Where is the spiritual leadership? You want the money in the basket in the pews of the church every Sunday, and you're doing nothing for these people. You're not even telling them what's going on. Now, here's the truth. At the top levels, the black magicians in the Vatican are like this with the black magicians in the Sanhedrin and the dark rabbinical circles. They're all one. And I think they have a corollary even in Mecca now. Okay? So you got all these people, about 3 billion people or 3.5 billion people involved in the Abrahamic systems. And really, they pretend to be fighting each other, but at the top level, they're all working together on an agenda they're not telling their adherents on. One is as bad as the other. let's not just pick on the Jews. The Vatican is just as bad. The Saudi Arabia and that Mecca crowd, just as bad. Okay? Just as bad. So now, leave the barn door open. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this ritual and maybe these blood offerings in the temple will close the doors to the negative regions where all the dark entities are coming from. Okay? I don't know. Maybe the rabbis do have the ability to put out this oil well fire. Maybe they do. Okay? But that's a 1% chance. 99% this is to their benefit, and it's to run the world and to kill anybody they don't like. I mean, Noahide law is a license to kill Gentiles. Okay? Because there isn't a religion in the world that cannot be defined as idolatry by Noahide law. Not one.
Yeah.
There are spiritual paths that will survive, but
yeah, and it's freaky, man. Yeah, I'm so gonna get banned on the stream. But in the Talmud, I read recently, they talk about there's literally like laws for how, like, at what age you can have intercourse with a Gentile child, and it says like 9 years old or younger is not a sin.
It's different for male or female, but it ends around 9 years old for and the buggering of the boys is endemic to Orthodox Judaism, and Jewish controlled media has been dragging the Catholic priests through the coals about this for like 4 decades now. I think Spotlight with Michael Keaton about the trials in Boston for the priests and everything. I think it was nominated for Oscars, and meanwhile, in reality, on a per capita basis, this is probably 5 times more normal in Judaica than it is in Catholicism. And how do they keep that out of the press? How do I know it? Vice did a piece on it a number of years ago. It was up for 3 days, gone. And then after that, have you ever noticed what happens to people of public stature who say something critical of the Jews? Did you go through the whole Elon Musk drama?
Yeah. But man, Noah's so funny about that. Don Lemon spilled the beans. Don Lemon spilled the beans on the whole situation. Who would have thought?
What did he say?
Well, because Elon had to go to Auschwitz, right? Don Lemon just casually on his TV show was like, and Elon said something wrong, so he had to go to Auschwitz to make up for it. Like, it was literally like, that's like the program. It's like, you mess up, you got to go with Ben Shapiro to Auschwitz. Like, Don Lemon literally spilled the beans. Like, that's just how it works. Like, you have to repent, right? And a lot of people have done that as well. Like Nick Fuentes. I've been watching him a bit. I don't agree with everything he says, but the guy has good takes, and he was a fan of Daily Wire, and he was just asking like about Israel, like why do we give like $4 billion a year to Israel? And Daily Wire was going to hire Nick Fuentes, and then they ended up doxing him, ruining his career. This kid was like 18 at the time, and then Fuentes got removed from all like bank accounts, all payment terminals, all platforms, and he's had to start from scratch, and he's been spreading his message for years. But now it's becoming mainstream that people are starting to wake up to this thing about Israeli.
Well, Rabbi Barkley chastises Candace Owens in his 2-hour interview with her on her channel after the blowout with Rabbi Shmuley. If you don't know, is the butt plug rabbi, sells butt plugs with his daughter.
Yeah.
Right. And look, I'm not a prude. I believe in healthy sexuality, open sexual expression with your mate and everything. But by the way, any youngsters listening to you, Donnie, don't sleep around, folks. OK, one of the principal ways energy, karma and entities get moved from one person to another is in the act of sex.
Yeah.
OK, because when you orgasm, you open yourself up astrally, and what's in the other person is going to come into you. Okay,
Yeah.
So that's another thing. There's a lot of things about sex that people don't understand. There's a whole esoteric nature, multidimensional nature to sex. That's why people get addicted to it, because you get a little bump. You go to the astral plane for it. An orgasm is an astral experience. Okay,
Yeah. So I just want
so
to jump in there very quick, Bruce, because I totally agree with what you're saying. I was in the hookup culture, totally messed me up. And this is something I think Christians are getting so right now, is just the rebuking, like, this concept of sin and stuff. If you live a more godly Christian type life, it only benefits you, man. And so I think the Christians,
yeah,
especially now, are getting it 100% correct in terms of, like, yeah, marriage, within the confines of marriage, turning away from pornography, turning away from drugs, turning away from all this wickedness. That's what I really
and
love
that
about Christians.
un, un, unfortunately, kids, that includes marijuana. Okay. If you don't think the timing of the legalization of marijuana was not intentional, you're not paying attention. Okay. You're not paying attention. They want you high. They want you distracted because, you know, and everything that's going on in the world now is about that fucking blood temple. End of story. Okay. Everything else is a distraction. Candace Owens says, she says in a podcast, just her own, where she's speaking to the mic, speaking to her audience. After she left Daily Wire, she said, everybody knows you get on the Israel bandwagon or you get ruined. Okay? Rabbi Barclay comes on her show and calls that a Jewish trope. You're saying that Jews attack people and try and destroy them. He says it's a lie on her show. And like 2 days later, Rabbi Shmuley is talking about a lawsuit to bankrupt Candace Owens. There's something about that beautiful, innocent, and pure black woman. There's a line they crossed. These rabbis and the American, they don't realize the tripwire that Candace Owens was.
Yeah.
She's not Ku Klux Klan. She's not making moonshine in Tennessee wearing a Klan outfit. They crossed a line, and now they're showing themselves. Now, are they showing themselves because they're blind and stupid now? When do people get cocky? When they have backup, right? You talk when you got your three buddies out back, and the guy who's hassling you in the bar doesn't know you have three guys out front, and clearly he could kick the shit out of you because he's 60 pounds heavier and 4 inches taller, and you're lipping off to him. He doesn't know you've got three guys outside that are going to kick the living shit out of him. So the question is, what is the Jewish backup right now? Is this the Mashiach? Is this the demonic energy they're bringing into the world? I don't know. By the way, Donnie,
yeah, go ahead.
you have been protected, by the way.
You think so?
Okay? You're not going to have any demonic issues simply because of the support you gave me and the interview on The Devil and Us. Because even the demonic legions are pissed off with this shit. Okay? Because they're not doing their normal job. They're not doing their normal job because they've been magically co-opted by the rabbinical magic. Captured, in a sense, if you will. That's what Solomon did. He captured the demons, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, Bruce. It's getting spicy, buddy. I love it. This has been an amazing stream. I want to why don't we just transition a little into the eclipse? So, okay, wow, it's a big eclipse. No big deal.
Yeah.
But then we see like 20 cities calling for a state of emergency. I think one city was bringing their like chemical warfare people from FEMA just in case. It's just totally insane. These people they're like, buy a month of supply of food. Like what is going on? Is like, I just think it's obviously hype. It's just like illusion events.
I don't.
But
anything.
What's going
Anything could happen. Anything could happen, Donnie. Anything could happen in the eclipse. It's a Wednesday in the Mickey Mouse Club. It's an anything can happen day. That eclipse. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean anything. You could. There could be aliens. There could be anything. Okay. So anyways, it's a natural evolution for the human race. We need to grow up. We've been spinning spiritual. The only reason sentient life exists on the planet in the form of the human being is to connect to the divine. This idea we have to progress, we have to go into space, it's all a bunch of horse shit, okay? There are a group of people here who do want to go into space. They have their own reasons for doing it because they can't do it spiritually. So they have to do it physically, right? The amount of resources on this planet that have been taken up by the secret space program are mind-boggling. The amount of resources on this planet that have gone off planet, it's mind-boggling, okay? So whatever controls this planet, part of its human face is the Jewish culture and the rabbis. Okay? Now, what do I think it is? I think I explain it pretty well in my books. Behind every religion is, let's call it, another race, another non-human race. Okay? So the commencement of the Abrahamic religions was really a Palladian enterprise. Billy Meyer explains all of this, okay? And then what happened was the reptilians came into the Palladian experience and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, if you were to ask me, so when we say reptilian, do we really mean you're going to go to the mall and see a 12-foot reptilian being? No, it's astral connecting to physical. Okay. So if you're in a certain frequency, you're going to connect with the reptilian energy on the astral. Okay, if you celebrate it and ritualize it, you're going to open up a portal and begin commiserating with this culture openly. Okay, there's a 1994 interview that David Icke did with a woman called Arizona Wilder, who was an Illuminati psychic who held the energy down in the rituals. And she said the portals would open and the ancient reptilians would be there and the humans would be able to communicate with them to get advice and counsel for the next step of their plan. This is 1994. I mean, there's no excuse for not knowing these things now. It's not. I realize, folks, it sounds crazy, okay? But it isn't. We are living in a combination of a fantasy novel and a science fiction novel and the religious texts right now. Throw them all into a blender, and that's what's going. But when it all resolves itself, it'll be a blessing for the human race because we need to learn these things, okay? I mean, I went up to the reserve and I slept there for 2 nights at a friend's house, a native guy with his wife and 2 kids. My son came, my buddy John, and my son's son, Aaron, from Portland came. And we could not believe the energy on the reserve, how peaceful it was. They have all their food there. They don't need anything. They have no electricity. They've seen the world. They don't want anything to do with it. They prefer their life in nature, okay? And this was a very rare treat for us to be invited there. Nobody in my family, none of my wife comes from a family with 11 kids. None of my brothers-in-law who were born and raised on this mountain have ever been invited to spend a night on the reserve, okay? I was invited. My son was invited, and we were allowed to bring our 2 American guests, the Portland guy and the Staten Island guy. And I'm telling you, man, it was just absolutely amazing. Absolutely an unbelievably amazing experience. So look, there's nothing wrong with the world, folks. Okay? The rivers are working, the wind is working, the trees are growing, food is growing. Every single aspect of this world is completely functional now. So when people say the world is ending, what they're really saying, whether they realize it or not, is there's a group of human beings that wants to kill a vast portion of the human population. Okay? That's what they're saying. So we're going through an energetic transition now. And when we come out the other side of it, we're going to be in a new golden age. This is also in the scriptures. They say after all this crazy shit goes down, the Antichrist and all of this crap, there's a 1,000-year golden age. Right? So anyways, that's what's going on.
Well, I appreciate you dropping knowledge and your perspectives. It's been it's been really fascinating. Like, yeah, for me this Eclipse stuff, it does feel, I don't know, so much is happening right now. And are you following the devil comment at all, that it's making its
no,
its return? No. Yeah, they were saying,
yeah, no,
this comment's
I'm
coming
aware
back.
of it.
You know, yeah, it seems like so much happening, you know, but that's part of the spell or the magic, right? It's like you get so many people hyper focused on one day, you know, projecting all their fear
They're
and
all
stuff, things can happen.
they're all accelerators. They're
Yeah.
just like we did. Why are they advertising the red heifers? To draw in the intentional energy to amplify the ritual, okay? And all of the timing of these rituals are amplification exercises, okay? It's like,
Mm.
what do you do when you're a surfer? You wait for the wave. What do you do when you're a rabbi? You wait for the astrological wave. Okay? So this is everything that's going on right now. Get yourself centered, folks. Get yourself centered in love. Eradicate all fear in your consciousness. Realize you're an immortal being loved by the creator of all dimensions and all realities and all universes. Okay? You are loved. Let that love in from the creator. Okay? And then you're not going to fear anything. Okay? It's just there's nothing to fear. But we'll see what happens on the 8th.
Love
That
it.
good for today, Donnie?
Yeah, definitely. Just checking in with the chat to see if anybody's got questions for you as we wrap up here. Give it a second here. People are talking about seeing reptilians in their own experiences. So Carlo calls it the shark gaze, and I've experienced that as well. You meet people who often can be very charming, and their eyes are just dead, and you find out they're narcissists. But I wonder if there's something even deeper behind this narcissism, psychopathy type people that we meet. Like, is it that they're tuning in? Is there a dullness? Or is there something more sinister? I think that'd be an interesting question.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think I said this in a previous interview with you, but look, possession is epidemic now. Okay? It's epidemic. Now, people don't understand what possession is. Okay? They watch this stupid 1972 movie done by the Jesuits called The Exorcist, and that was a Jesuit movie. And the Jesuits are cocksuckers too. I mean, they're as bad as any rabbinical circle. Okay, I mean, let's not just put this all off on the Jews. Okay, the Jesuits are absolute bastards. Okay, so sorry, what was I saying? What was the point again? Before I derided the Jesuits.
Oh, just this. Yeah. We got it in the chat here. Our girl Wendy and admin of the chat. Not that you guys need an admin. I just thought it was funny to give Wendy status here. She says narcissism is demonic, and to me it seems like a form of possession. Like I've come across these guys a lot in the business world. That's what made me start my own business, is because I was always coming against guys in positions of power who were like psychopaths, and I would spot them immediately. And they always came after me, and it was just insane. So yeah, I'm just curious your thoughts.
I've had a few run-ins with psychopaths in my life as well. They also, but very often, so when you're possessed, it's usually unconscious. You don't know you're possessed. Okay? Unless you meditate on a regular basis and audit your consciousness in samadhi, where your rational sense-based mind is shut down, and you go into that middle space between sleeping and dreaming, you're never going to know if you're possessed or bothered. So there's, this is the great secret of possession, is the vast majority of people who get possessed never even know they're possessed. Yeah. Okay? They never even know. It's very subtle. Now, in the past, you'd know right away, because if you're working in the fields in 1880 in Wisconsin, you're going to know, because just the work you do and the life you live is like praying and meditating. But again, go back the first chapter in the second section of The Devil in Us, our last free breath, what the Industrial Revolution and the rational black box human consciousness got put into has done to us. Everything that's going on now is setting us up for physical or spiritual annihilation, or both. And spiritual annihilation would be, what I mean by that is just you're possessed while you're in the body. Okay? Yeah. So that's my take. Great interview, Donnie. Right. Thank you very much.
Fantastic interview. Guys, thank Bruce. Bruce, where can people find you and support your work?
I started a little podcasting now, and you can always find me on MacDonald in the Morning on Spotify, and go to Amazon, MacDonald, capital D. Get if you really want to understand what's going on in the world now, you do need to read all three books in sequence. So, Stardust Ranch explains portals. Okay, The Light of Darkness explains darkness, and The Devil in Us explains the fallacy of the devil and how we've got that all wrong. Okay, that the devil is a divine being who has a job to do. Okay, just like a cockroach has a job to do. It's unpleasant. We don't like it, but the devil is it's the Hindus get it right. Brahman, singular consciousness. The moment you come into duality, you have the creator Vishnu and the destroyer Shiva. So in our system, the devil is the destroyer, but destruction is natural because we live in an entropic environment, and so everything has to be destroyed and rebuilt or reborn. That's just the way it is down here. You can't get all sentimental about it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just on that point, though, quickly, I do have trouble wrapping my head around that. So I agree in some sense exactly what you're saying is true, but I find there's a justification for a lot of evil that I really don't think needs to exist, right? So there's a lot of
Oh, I agree.
suffering and just horrendous evil in this world, and like for one time I was in a church and a young girl was like 13. She got savagely sexually assaulted, and it was tragic. And the preacher basically stood up and was like, "Well, it's God's will, and like kind of like a spiritual. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And so I really don't think there's a need to have that. Yes, we do overcome through adversity, but there's also, I think, just like evil that would be
Yeah.
sweet if it wasn't here. So I'd be
And
curious. Yeah.
isn't it interesting as this evil manifests itself? There's so many attacks on children. And what are children? They represent the absolute innocence and God infused human being up
Yeah.
until about the age of 8.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's doing that to children is a way of attacking God. So it is completely satanic. I agree with you. All right, Donnie, it's been fantastic, man.
Cool. All right, guys, I'm going to do a post stream, so please go and support Bruce. I'll hop off, say my goodbyes offline to Bruce, and then I'll be back on
All
in a
right, be
minute.
well, man.
Okay. All right. Bruce is actually, he just hopped off Skype, so I'll give him a call later and thank him. But yeah, guys, hope you really liked the stream. A lot of stuff in there. Yeah, I'm pretty much betting that YouTube is going to take down my stream here because of all the things we talk about. But we hopefully we skirted around it enough. Who cares? Whatever. But yeah, a lot in there. I mean, the red heifer is crazy, and I want to pull up this lady here. Give me a second here. Search the red heifer. Heifer. Oh, heifer. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's just like he's talking about. There's so much like tone deafness in a lot of these communities. Like this lady here is just casually talking about like Cassie Dillon. What is it? Oh, did she delete it? I'm trying to find it here. Here we go. Yeah. Let me share my screen here. Where is it? A website. Oh. Can I do? Here we go. Dispelling falsehoods about the red heifers. No, there's no plans to sacrifice them right now. They're being bred to create a herd that can live in an educational visitor center. No, they're not genetically modified. Yeah, they are. Actually, that's a lie. There's a whole team that's been doing this for decades. No, Jews do not believe the red heifer means the Messiah has arrived. Yeah, that means they're doing the ritual to bring in the Antichrist. No, a red heifer sacrifice does not include burning them alive. No, there's no altar on the Mount of Olives, which is a total lie, because they made an altar, and it's on Times of Israel right now. Only 9 have ever been sacrificed since the time of Moses, according to Maimonides. The ashes of the red heifer used to ritually purify. They were brought to Israel by Jews and Christians. I interviewed the woman who helped bring them in. Crazy. And then we're talking this other one here. I had to take my dirty panties to a rabbi, and so has every Orthodox Jewish woman. It's just totally insane when you read this. I just couldn't imagine having to bring your wife's panties to a man. Oh, God. It's like too graphic to even show. Oh, God. Yeah, if you want to know about that, yikes. I don't even want to. And yeah, the Talmud talks about just it's gross stuff, guys. And I really want to be cautious. This is a really tough topic to discuss because I agree with Bruce. Not everybody is. We're talking about a minority here, but this stuff needs to come out. That there's a lot of evil stuff happening, and a lot of everyday Jewish people are gonna get blamed for it, and I don't want that. So I also hope that people call out insanity in their own tribes, no matter what it is, right? Like, just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm gonna cover up evilness for white people. And if you're Christian, don't cover up evilness in your church. Expose evilness and wickedness always. I think we're called to do that, very much so, right? And it doesn't matter what clique or, what it is. Guys, just call out evil here. Does anybody have any questions for me? Just checking the streams here. Not really, not much, eh? Yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. I'm going to go for a nice hike into nature. And yeah, guys, a lot going on next week. I'm going to actually have an alchemist on during the eclipse, so that's going to be funny. But I hope everyone is staying sane. I really want to thank everybody who's supporting us so far, who's been watching. You guys are all great. If you ever can, please support us. buymeacoffee.com/thespellbreakers podcast. But even just being here is really great. I love having high vibe people in the Telegram group. And if you haven't joined that, it's in the links below. And just your support, it's awesome. It's been a really great journey so far. I love everybody who's been watching and supporting. I've been shadow banned a lot. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get unbanned, and I don't think I'm that controversial. I'm not. This one I don't know if it'll squeak past the YouTube, but we'll see. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody who's been watching. It's been really awesome. I really appreciate everybody. Yeah, Wendy, we love you. I want to thank you for all your support. Awesome lady. I was chatting with her a little bit. She's really cool. I actually kind of want to interview her as well. She's got a lot of interesting experiences, so we'll see if that. Let's see if we do that. LU, I think first time I've seen you in the chat. I don't understand why lizards. How did lizards get into us? Well, there are many different reports of reptilians being part of the game. David Icke, if you watch his Credo Mutwa interviews, he was the leader of the Zulu Nation Credo Mutwa. That guy was deep, man. I'd recommend checking his stuff out. But yeah, they seem to present as reptilians. As Wendy said in the chat here, they're not actually lizards, they're demons. Yeah, and that's where the Christians and the alien community, UFO community differ a bit. I'm more in the Christian camp, except I believe demons are actually just disembodied spirits. And I think aliens are largely maybe even vessels, like the bodies themselves are vessels for the spirits, so minor technicality, I guess. But yeah, there's many people who talk about seeing like reptilian or lizard-like people, and as Bruce says, it may just be, we're tuning into the astral, like their energy or energetic state, which is very reptilian. I've never seen this. I've seen people with like very lizardy, snaky eyes, which they turned out to be evil later. And yeah, your intuition is really key. And that's something I really think we need to cultivate, because oftentimes I'm batting like 1,000 with my lady, because she's a total sweetheart. And a lot of these empaths, you have the most to worry about, because they just want to like help everybody. And so she gets herself into these situations where, you meet these people come into her life and she's just trying to help. And I'm like, yeah, that's a bad situation. Like, you don't talk to that person. And at first, she was very skeptical, but I was always 100% accurate in like every call I ever made. So yeah, cultivating intuition is really key, especially for those who are empaths, because it's kind of like empaths are kind of like heroin to narcissists. They'll eat you up until there's nothing left. Let me check Rumble. Rumble, you guys are no chats here. YouTube. Jackie says in the astral plane. Yeah, in the astral plane. And then Wendy says, if you want to get technical, the reptilian are fallen ones, which also explains cloning. Yeah, I'd recommend Paul from You Conspiracy. We did a few on the Nephilim. That was a great one. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. But yeah, Wendy, I'd be curious. Maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe we should do a stream, because you're always. I love your perspectives, and I want to bring more Christians on as well, because I want to piss everybody off equally. Because I piss the Gnostics off. They say I'm not Gnostic enough and too Christian, and then the Christians get pissed off. And I think of doing a solo episode where I talk about where I'm coming in at with like Gnostic and Christianity, because I think like I'm kind of in the middle in some respects. But as I said, I really like, especially now, Christians are calling out. Like, I think Christian is a good model for men. Us men, when we're left to our own devices, are we just get into trouble. We become amateur, not amateur, just idiots. Like, we'll play video games all day. We'll, watch gross videos. We'll, won't take care of ourselves. We become disgusting creatures, And so I think Christianity is a really good model for men to be actually men, to like be good, be loving, be honest, raise a family, be there for your wife. Don't be a little bitch. Call out, evil, live a good life. And I don't want to pretend I'm some purity guy. I'm trying my best to really just live a like more Christian centered life. Like, I'm getting off I'm 2 weeks off nicotine. I'm trying to get off everything. I even want to get off coffee. I'm trying to. I'm like 1/2 calf a day. Because I just think all of these things, they hold us back and they leave us open to attack. And so, this isn't a judgment. I think a lot of Christians, they don't get their message across because of how they express them. But I can tell you firsthand, like, when you quit addictions, your life gets better. When you commit yourself to goodness and to love, your life gets better. When you don't watch evil videos and gross porn and all this stuff, your life gets better. And that's where I think Christians are really knocking it out of the park right now, because a lot of Gnostics, I think maybe their view of reality itself is maybe more accurate in some ways, or, they really get that part wrong. Like, there's a lot of moral relativism and moral ambiguity, which I personally, I don't vibe with, because it's clear what's happening in the world is evil, and I don't like just explaining it away. you know so yeah, that would be I guess Donnie's tip of the day is, you men in the chat, just do better, and yeah, get off. If you got addictions, get off. This is the time, guys. Like, with stuff getting so insane, like, imagine if stuff actually goes bad and you're hooked on tobacco or nicotine. Like, you would abandon your whole family for like one cigarette. Like, that's how crazy addiction is, right? Think about how weak that makes you. And same with, like, imagine if the internet goes down for a day. Like, like 99% of guys are addicted to porn now. Imagine how insane guys would get just to, like, see one. You could literally have like a hand cranked projector, of like hand drawn boobies, and you could, get like a week's worth of supply of food, because guys would be so desperate. Just, it's sick. It makes you so weak, and I don't want to come from a place of like judgment, but we got to get off that. We got to get off all this gross stuff and just live badass lives. And I think God is, you get rewarded when you do that. And it's not easy too. It's tough, but yeah, it's time to stop being little boys and become men, especially now. Just my 2 cents though. What do I know? I'm just another podcaster. Anyways, I hope I'm not seeing any questions from me. Oh, let's see here. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm gonna end the stream, guys. What it's Wendy here said. First rule to breaking addiction is stop saying you're addicted or an addict. Mindset is everything, and speaking like over yourself. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but I also think you have to admit first that you are an addict when you are an addict, because a lot of people, a lot of things in our lives, we don't realize you're an addict till you stop, and that's just a fact. I mean, most of us try going, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, no phone. They can't do it. Try just sitting. I think, like, become the strongest I ever have. I've been lifting lots, and it feels amazing. But I wonder, like, mental health, I think, like, a good standard would be, can you just sit alone in a room for like half an hour and do nothing? Most people can't do it like 30 seconds. Can you just like sit in a room quietly, peacefully? All these distractions, like, we're so overstimulated, and that's what I learned quitting nicotine is, man, everything, we're just chasing dopamine endlessly. It's like we're all junkies. It's the same thing in the mind. It could be your phone, it could be social media, it could be eating, it could be coffee, it could be anything. It's like, whew, it's all the same in the mind. And yeah, and you get like depressed when you get off because you were just spiking dopamine constantly. So it's like, you got to rewire your brain. I'm still there. I'm still getting there, but it's been awesome. And it gives you the power to know that you can do it. And that's the beauty in, I think, religion and Christianity, and in goodness, in spirituality. For me, it's seeing goodness as the highest, like, you're striving for goodness, and then Christians get it right, like that we all fall short of, we all fall short, we all miss the mark, but we're called to do it. That's why Christianity to me is so profound. And even though with all my horrible experiences in churches, that I'm still repping JC, you know. I don't want to discourage any Christians from following me. You know, yeah, it's tough. Like I'm down with anybody who calls that evil and is like trying to live their best. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm going to end it now, guys. But I want to, again, thank you guys so much for supporting. And yeah, if you guys are able to, please make a donation sometime. buymeacoffee.com/thespellbreakerspodcast. Gonna make a little post here. We also got a Telegram chat that's been fire. And hope to see you guys in there. Okay, much love. Hope you have a peaceful and blessed weekend.